Imagine this: a man sworn to defend his country turned against it in its darkest hour, a betrayal so deep that his name became synonymous with treason, but his end was even darker. This is the chilling story of the British Army's most infamous traitor. During World War II, when Britain single-handedly stood against the Axis powers, loyalty was not a virtue, but a lifeline in which betrayal was inconceivable. It is a sacred trust, nonetheless, broken by one British soldier, Harold Cole. Not only was Cole a traitor, but he also was a manipulator, a deceiver, and finally, an executioner in his own right. Born in 1906, the early life of Cole was marked by petty crimes. When war broke out, he donned a uniform not out of patriotism, but as a cover which suited his aim. His true nature would emerge to wreak havoc across Europe. At one point, Cole had begun as an individual part of the British Expeditionary Force. First, he created ways of confidence building by shamming to be a hero and helping Allied soldiers out of occupied France. But in these cover-ups that sounded so fascinating, he cherished grimmer thoughts. Unbeknownst to them all, Cole was selling out on his comrades-in-arms to the Gestapo, the secret police of Nazi Germany. Imagine the horror. Allied soldiers who are supposed to be led back to the lines for their own safety actually are walking into their executioner's arms. He had not only betrayed comrades-in-arms, but also civilians and members of the French resistance in general, and any person of whatever ilk who ever showed trust in him. The Gestapo had paid handsome money for his betrayal for months, but soon, greed and carelessness would catch up with Cole. As the war in Europe began to turn against the Axis, so did Gestapo patience with their double agent. Desperate and cornered, Cole fled back to Britain in the hope of escaping justice. The reality couldn't have been farther from this. But that is not the amazing thing. It is what happened afterwards. In 1945, while the British had him behind bars, he managed to escape from custody. Yes, after all those lives he had shattered, he managed to slip away. For years, he kept traveling with false identities, continuing his life of crime. But finally, justice caught up with him, and in 1946, the French police tracked him to a dingy apartment in Paris. Cornered, Cole chose to go out in a blaze of violence, opened fire on the officers himself, and in return got a mortal wound in the shootout. Well, here it gets even darker. It was not over even after Cole died. Historians finally learned the extent to which he betrayed the agency. Records reflect that more than 150 members of the French resistance were captured and executed because of Cole's treachery. Families torn apart, communities devastated, all because of the greed and cowardice of one man. The story of Harold Cole epitomizes how some betrayals can amount to being the most disastrous. In wars, everything hangs on trust, and any form of betrayal amounts to breaking of bonds that may have been threads that hold on to hope. But it is also about justice. Years later, the repercussions of his actions finally caught up with Cole. He ended his life in shame and went into history not as a hero, but as a symbol of treason. But it awakens within our minds other questions, questions that reach far beyond this battlefield. How do we defend ourselves from betrayal? How do we ensure loyalty, not only to the state, but to our values, humanity? And, perhaps above all, how are those who have at their command our lives and property to be stopped in their corruptive march of greed and power? What do you think to that? Do we have anything to learn from stories such as Harold Cole's? How would you make certain that such betrayals never happen, whether in wartime or in times of peace? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If this story has opened your eyes to a part of history that you never heard, let's make sure to like the video and share it with any history buffs in your life who enjoy exposing the forgotten truth of the times. Never miss one of the new stories that are emerging from behind the curtain of history. Subscribe today and let inspiring and evocative stories remind one of things we should never forget. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay curious, keep questioning, and never stop seeking the truth.